One day, a young man was finishing his work at the office. After gathering his things, he headed home, but on the way he was hit by a car and died. Suddenly, he found himself reborn as a baby in another world. It was raining, and an old man was holding him. Years went by and the boy, now named Shin, grew up. The old man who had found him that day adopted him as his grandson. Shin lived in the forest with his grandfather, hunting animals with magic. Of course, he still remembered his past life. Shin returned to his grandfather at home. We learned that the grandfather's name is Merlin. He asked, "How was the hunt?" Shin smiled and opened his dimensional bag, pulling out the animals he had hunted. His grandfather was proud of his skills. Shin explained that Grandpa Merlin was very skilled in magic. Later, Merlin asked Shin to light a woodpile with fire magic. Shin quickly set it ablaze, surprising his grandfather with his talent. Just then, Shin's grandmother, Melita, and their family friend, Michael, arrived. Merlin told Shin, "You can't rely on magic alone. You also need to learn combat skills," which excited Shin even more. Shin's grandmother discovered he had gone hunting alone and scolded him for doing something so dangerous. Shin insisted it wasn't dangerous and explained that he'd used the magical tools they had made together. The grandmother got more annoyed and called him an idiot. Merlin intervened, calming her by reminding her of Shin's magical talent and how familiar he was with the forest. Michael, impressed by Shin's abilities, announced that he would intensify his combat training from that point on. Shin pouted and said, "Oh, please don't." They all laughed at him. 2 years later, Shin and his grandfather walked in the forest, and the grandfather took Shin to hunt cursed beasts. He explained to Shin about the cursed beasts and how even humans could be transformed by cursed energy. And his grandfather told him the story of the cursed human who almost destroyed humanity until the grandfather defeated the monster and saved the village. To this day, his grandfather is considered a hero of mankind. The grandfather began Shin's first lesson, teaching him a magic called search magic to search for the cursed beasts. Just as the grandfather finished explaining, Shin naturally used the magic, and as usual, the grandfather was amazed. Shin could sense all the living creatures in the forest and soon detected a cursed beast. Shin and the grandfather quickly headed toward the beast, which turned out to be a giant bear. Shin rushed at the beast, and with a single swift strike, cut off its head. His grandfather stood in shock, amazed by what he had just seen. Shin turned to him and asked how he did, and his grandfather praised him for a perfect performance. Shin felt proud and happy to have defeated the beast. Later that evening, the grandfather told the grandmother and Michael about Shin's victory, and how he had defeated the cursed bear in one powerful strike without help. As always, everyone was amazed by Shin's strength. The grandmother praised him, saying his skills in magic and combat were incredible, even matching Michael. They continued talking about how much they all loved Shin. The next morning, Shin's grandfather called him over, saying he needed to talk. He took Shin to a quiet spot in the forest and told him a secret. He wasn't Shin's real grandfather. He had found Shin as a baby, alone in the forest. Shin wasn't upset and calmly asked if the cursed bear he defeated could have been the one that destroyed his parents' village. The grandfather was surprised by the question. Shin smiled and said that if it was, then he had avenged his parents. The grandfather was even more surprised and asked Shin, "You've accepted all this so easily?" Shin nodded and replied with a smile, "They were my parents, but I don't remember them at all. Besides, I have you and Grandma." The grandfather was deeply moved by Shin's words and couldn't stop the tears of joy from filling his eyes. 5 years later, the house was filled with guests celebrating. Shin had turned 15 and was now considered an adult in their world. The grandmother was emotional, seeing her grandson, who was once a baby, now grown up. During the celebration, Uncle Dis asked Shin about his future plans. Shin replied, "First, I want to leave the forest and visit the nearby town. After that, I'll decide what to do next." Siegfried and Christina suggested that since he had trained with Michelle, he could join the royal force or become a cursed beast hunter. Shin was confused and asked, "What's a cursed beast hunter?" A merchant named Tom explained, "Cursed beast hunters track and kill cursed beasts. It's dangerous, but they earn big rewards." Siegfried asked Shin if it's his first time hearing all of this. Shin replied that he had never left the forest. Everyone was shocked to hear that, and Shin's grandmother scolded his grandfather for not teaching him anything about the outside world. Shin then took everyone to a distant training ground using his instant teleportation spell. This magic is Shin's invention, and everyone is amazed at his magical powers. Next, Shin demonstrates his offensive magic that he had previously shown to his grandfather. Everyone is shocked because he nearly destroyed the entire area with a single attack, and his grandmother scolds him for such a dangerous move, yelling at his grandfather too. After that, they return home and talk about how strong and talented Shin is, and how his abilities could cause a power struggle between nations. Then, Uncle Dis suggests that Shin joins the magical academy in their country. Shin is confused and asks, what does he mean by his country? Then Uncle Dis reveals his identity to Shin, as do the others. Shin is shocked to learn that Dis is the king of the country, and Chris and Siegfried are royal magicians accompanying King Dis, and Michelle is the retired commander of the Knight's Guard. Shin is shocked to discover that all his relatives are very important people in the country. After that, they all agree that Shin join the academy. Next day, they travel to the kingdom, and when they arrive, the guard asks for their identification. After he looked at them, he realizes they are the great heroes and their grandson. He screams in excitement, and the whole town starts to chase after them. Next, they reach the mansion in the town, and Shin is surprised by how huge and grand it is, along with many servants. After that, Shin wants to explore the town, so he goes out, he buys an apple, and eats it during his tour. He then encounters a group of hunters harassing two girls on the road. Shin steps in, easily handling the group, and the two girls thank him for saving them. Shin then goes with the girls to a cafe. They thank him again for rescuing them from the dangerous situation, and they introduce themselves. The first girl is Maria, and the second is Cicely. Maria asks Shin if he is new to the capital. Shin replies that he is here to take the entrance exam for the Magical Academy. Maria then mentions that the hero and heroine have recently arrived in town with their grandson and comments on how lucky they are to attend the academy alongside him this year. Shin simply laughs and says nothing about being the grandson. After bidding farewell to Maria, Shin leaves. On the day of the entrance exam, he stands in front of the name list, checking his assigned group. A snobbish boy approaches him and says, "Get out of my way." Shin ignores him, but the boy grabs his shoulder. Shin quickly knocks him down. Angry, the boy introduces himself as Kurt, the son of a count, but Shin doesn't care. The students laugh at Kurt, making him furious. He yells and insults Shin again, but the prince arrives, settles the matter, and sends Kurt away. Shin doesn't know who this is until the prince introduces himself as Prince August. Shin realizes August is the son of Uncle Dis, the king. Shin asks, "So that means we're cousins, right?" August laughs and says, "Yes, exactly." Everyone at the academy is surprised by how casually Shin talks to Prince August. Then the exams begin. After the written test, it's time for the practical magic exam. The instructor asks the students to cast their magic on the targets. The students' spells are weak, but they seem proud of themselves, which confuses Shin. When it's his turn, the instructor tells him the king has instructed that he control his power as much as possible. Shin feels nervous and casts his signature blue flames, destroying the target and the wall behind it. Everyone is shocked by his power. That evening, the teachers discuss the results and are shocked by Shin's strength. Naturally, he gets the highest score of the year. The next day, while collecting uniforms and magical tools, the supervisor tells Shin that he'll be giving the speech as the top student. Shin is nervous and protests, saying, "How can I give the speech when Prince August is here?" He tries to avoid it, but it's too late. Meanwhile, Cecily and Maria watch Shin and August talk so casually, wondering who Shin really is. That evening, Kurt feels jealous, upset that he is placed in Class A while Shin is in Class S, the top rank. Meanwhile, Shin works on enchanting his uniform with stronger magic. He is excited when it works and his magic improves the uniform, but his grandmother walks in and is shocked by what he has done. The next day, his grandparents take him to the academy for the entrance ceremony. His grandmother reminds him not to tell anyone about what he did to his uniform, and Shin agrees. At that moment, everyone notices the arrival of the hero and heroine at the academy and rushes to meet them. August then approaches Shin and goes for opening ceremony. They're soon joined by Cecily and Maria, and they all head into the hall together. The instructor invites Shin to the stage for the speech by calling his full name. Maria and Cecily are shocked to learn that their friend Shin is the hero's grandson. Shin greets everyone and gives his speech while Kurt fumes with jealousy. And that's the end of the video. If you want to see the next part, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel.